Did you know today is World Down Syndrome Day? Everyone is encouraged to wear a pair of different socks to show solidarity with people living with Down syndrome in the society. Welcome to Soundhealth. I'm Olasumbo Mudupe. Also on innovation this week, a mother designs eyeglasses to improve sight of people living with Down syndrome in the society. We'll be back in a moment. Please stay with us.
Down syndrome, also known as trisomy 21, is a genetic disorder caused by the presence of all or part of a third copy of chromosome. This additional genetic material alters the course of development and causes the features associated with Down syndrome. According to medical experts, the condition causes delays in the way a child develops, both physically and mentally.
Down syndrome is a genetic disorder. It's a trisomy in which instead of having two chromosomes, you have a third chromosome. And it's usually in women who get pregnant in old age, over the age of 40, because the ovary, the eggs in the ovary are old. Not men, but the eggs in the ovary are old, so they are defective. So in the process of maturation and fertilization, there is a mismatch in which one chromosome, instead of going to the other side, will move. And instead of having two chromosomes, we'll have three. So it's a trisomy 21 syndrome.
Every 21st of March is World Down Syndrome Day, and this year's theme is My Voice, My Community.
Today on the program, I have with me Rose Modi, a parent and an advocate of inclusiveness for people living with Down syndrome in the society. Welcome to the program, ma'am.
It's a pleasure.
The project Down syndrome has been in existence formally 15 years ago, but it has been in your heart about 20 or more than that. Why did you take up this project?
Oh, well, that's a question I've been asked over and over again. They say, I'm the founder of the foundation. I said, no, the foundation found me because, when I had my last daughter, my last child, nearly 30 years ago, and she was born with Down syndrome, so that actually set up the pace for me to think about how to handle my child who has Down syndrome and also impact on the society, because I do know that there's hardly a family that doesn't have a child that will be born with Down syndrome.
And what has been the journey like?
The journey had been, I don't know how to put it, quite challenging in our society. Knowing that in this part of the world, there's so much superstition, stigmatization, and the fact that things we don't know, we attach some spiritual connotation to it. So the journey had not been that easy, but over the years, we had been able to create awareness, and I would say right now, it's becoming a lot less challenging than it was when we started.
What causes a baby to be Down syndrome, if you're going to describe it to a layman?
A layman. I put it this way. A child with Down syndrome would be born with an extra chromosome. At conception, the male reproductive cell has 23 chromosomes, and chromosomes are the blueprint of who we would grow up to be. And the female reproductive cell would have 23 chromosomes. And at conception, when they fuse together to form the baby, that initial cell is meant to have 46 chromosomes. But with a child who is going to have Down syndrome, during the pairing process, at the 21st pairing, an extra chromosome springs up. And then as the cell divides and develops to form the human being, because we are made up of cells, that initial cell that should have been 46, should have had 46 chromosomes, and ends up with 47 chromosome is developing with an extra chromosome. So in all the cells in the body, they have 47. So that single extra chromosome is what predisposes a child to have Down syndrome. There are so many visible physical symptoms, and they are the ones that need to be properly checked medically, like chromosomal checks to know that that child actually has the extra chromosome. But physically, you look at the child with Down syndrome, they have a flat nasal bridge, a low set ear. Most of them, the mouth would be, they have smaller mouth cavity that tends to make their tongue to look big, but it's not actually big. But because the mouth cavity is smaller, the tongue tends to shoot out. And that's why when you see a child with Down syndrome, the mouth is most of the time open and the tongue would be hanging out. And then you look at their palm, the crease here, most of us have 3 indentation in our palm. Most children with Down syndrome have 2. Even though you would have quite a number of them that would have the same regular ones like the rest of us. You look at their toe, they have what we call sandal toe. The big toe and the second toe, there's a lot of gap in between. That's that. And then most of them are floppy. They are born with low muscle tone. Every single child with Down syndrome has that floppiness. So that tends to make them to be slower. That's why a lot of them would not meet their developmental milestone like their peers. You find out that they develop later than others because of the low muscle tone. That's some of the things you would notice. But a more conclusive test would be to carry out chromosomal tests to know what type of Down syndrome the child has.
That brings me to my next question. Are there types or are there stages for the condition?
There are 3 types of Down syndrome. So that's what that needs to be done to be very conclusive, because a child could have all the features and might not have Down syndrome. There are some that the physical features might not really be prominent and they might have Down syndrome. So to be very, very conclusive, chromosomal test needs to be carried out. I talked about 3 types of Down syndrome. You have the one that is very common is the one they call trisomy 21, and that is why they use that name, trisomy 21. That's all the cells in the body would have the extra chromosome. 95% of Down syndrome cases have trisomy 21. Then you have the second one is the one they call mosaic, that some cells in the body might have the regular 46 and others would have the 47. Depending on the cell of the body, that would determine if that child would function normally with the peers. If it is a brain cell that has a regular one, the child might have the feature of a child with Down syndrome, but would be able to function academically better than the one with trisomy 21. And then the third one is the one they call translocation. Translocation is the only type of Down syndrome that could be inherited, passed on from a generation, which means it's like a dormant cell that just lies dormant and could come up again, which means maybe somebody in the family along the line probably had Down syndrome and then it could come out, and that's maybe about 1% of the total thing. But the main one is the trisomy 21.
According to a recent research, the desire to complete formal education before conception and the rising incidence of the prevalence has been attributed to the causes of Down syndrome in the society. But this claim has been faulted by another research in the society. It says recently 80% of the children with Down syndrome are born by mothers under the age of 30. What's your take on this statistic?
That statistics, I have, like you have said, it's been faulted because the statistics were got from the advanced countries, and there most of the women would have finished having their children before the age of 35. So the few who have the children over 35 are the ones they used, but it's been faulted because here in Nigeria, more than I would say more than 70 to 75% of our parents we have here had their children either as a first child and in their early years, in their 20s and so on. And then I understand another research was carried out somewhere in India, and they also, their own finding was that it's probably the age of the grandmother that determines whether that child would be born with Down syndrome. So these are all theories. And therefore it's nothing really to stick to or depend so much on. The important thing is the child is born with Down syndrome. What next? Because you have to think about the child. I've seen a lot of people that have their children in their 40s and so on, they don't have Down syndrome.
How can the condition be managed?
That's what we should be concerned about, how it should be managed in 3 ways. In fact, 4 different ways. Early medical intervention, because babies born with Down syndrome are predisposed to quite a lot of medical conditions that needs to be taken care of. And that was why in the past they didn't know about it. The life expectancy for a person with Down syndrome was not more than 20, 25. The reason being that their medical needs were not addressed. But now that that had been taken care of, they live into their 70s and 80s. They live regular, normal lives like every other person. So early medical intervention is the key. It needs to be taken care of. And therefore we have preventative medical checklists that we always give to parents to make sure that they carry out these tests, at least to eliminate some of the conditions, medical conditions that they are predisposed to. Like, for example, the what we call hole in the heart, congenital heart defect, which about 40 to 50% of people with Down syndrome are predisposed to. If this is checked in time and corrected, they live normal lives. And then they are predisposed to thyroid function tests. Some of them could be predisposed to leukemia, that's a blood cancer. A lot of them could be predisposed to diabetes and so on. If these are checked in time and corrected, just like every other person, it's not that it's only peculiar to them, but it's more prevalent among them. What they are predisposed to is what you and I are predisposed to. If you don't check yourself and know your family history and know if your family runs the risk of having diabetes or hypertension and so on, and you just live your life like that, you could fall a victim. So with them, we always advise, carry out early medical checkup for them. That's number 1. Number 2, early educational intervention. Start teaching them early enough, even because they are slow learners, most of them, so that they would be able to pick up and meet with their peers or come as close as possible. And then early social integration. You need to expose them, don't hide them away. Get them involved in other things like their peers and so on. Celebrate them, be proud of them, and that is why we set out, the UN has set up a day to celebrate them, because in the past a lot of them were hidden away. even by the families, because of the stigma attached to having this condition. They feel they owe society apologies for having these children. And I usually ask the question, can anybody create human life? Therefore, why should you dictate what child you want God to send to you? So those are the things: early medical intervention, early educational intervention, early social integration, and of course advocacy. My advice to the family is, you don't owe the society apologies for having a child with Down syndrome, since you didn't create the child. Therefore, you need to accept the child first. Show love to the child and be proud of that child. The society would have no choice but to accept the child. But when you feel that the child is a dent on your image and you hide the child away, of course society would also trash the child, because if you don't accept the child, how do you expect the society to accept the child? And then I also then speak to the community. You need to accept the differences in who we are. Everybody cannot be the same. So don't stigmatize a child who has Down syndrome or any disability for that matter. That is it. And then for the policymakers, we need to put structures on ground to take care of every single individual, whether that person has disability, one form of disability or the other. The right structure must be put on ground.
Looking at the provisions in place in Nigeria compared to what we have in advanced countries, on what scale will you place Nigeria?
I haven't even put them on any scale at all, because there's no structure on ground. Having said that, I want to give kudos to the Lagos State government, because they are actually making an effort to put the right structure on ground, and that's why the department, the LASODA, had been put in place, and a lot of things are being put in place for them, which I think other state governments need to copy and emulate, because I don't believe there's any other state so far that has done what Lagos State has done. And I think that is the right step in the right direction, because with LASODA being in place, all the different clusters of disability are being taken care of, because LASODA takes care of the different needs of the different clusters. You have those with visual impairment, you have those with hearing impairment, you have those with physical impairment, those on wheelchairs and so on. Then you have those with intellectual disability, which are Down syndrome falls under. So we, the board, that's the Lagos State Disability Board, is trying to put all the structures in place, and which is very good. But they still need to go a step further by creating awareness for families that have these people to come on board and take advantage of all the things that the government has put in place for them. For example, right now, LASODA, the board, has in place a disability ID card for everybody with disability, that they would have free transportation if they have that the ID card, and they have what they call the blue badge that one could put in the car. If you are carrying a person with disability, you are entitled to parking in a spot that had been set aside for people with disability, which is what is operating in the more advanced countries. So Lagos State is putting all that in place, and I think it's really commendable.
Okay, how is your daughter, and what advice do you have for members of the public, especially people living with the condition? Is it the end of the world?
It is.
Despite the structure in place, we still have marginalization, isolation. This year's theme for the celebration is My Voice, My Community. How have you been able to bridge the gap between the community and the society?
Serious and more complex disabilities out there But with them, their own is very easy to handle. And quite frankly, it is a blessing to have a child with Down syndrome, because they are, I would put it this way, they are very close to God, because they are quite innocent, they are loving, they teach you a lot. They even, I think they come with a message to the rest of us to show unconditional love. If you see somebody with Down syndrome, you would see the difference between them and the rest of us, because they have such capacity to love. And I believe God sent them here to teach us a thing or two about how to love unconditionally. And we have a creed, Down syndrome creed, that God sent me here to teach you one or two things about how to love.
Okay, this year's theme is My Voice, My Community, and people all over the world are encouraged to wear a pair of socks. What's the need for members of the public? Why do we have to wear socks on this day?
The significance is just to draw attention to our cause, and also to show that we all are different. We can't be the same. And that's why we wear these odd socks. You see, all over the world on the 21st of March, you would see people wearing this to identify with Down syndrome, to show that, yes, we are different, so is everybody else. So we wear odd socks. Okay. I might be slim, you might be slim, I might be fat. Okay. So that doesn't make me any different from you. Right. Because internally we are all the same. We are human beings. Okay. Outside we might be different. That actually is a message we are sending out there. My voice, my community. We are telling them, yes, I might look different, but I am still a human being like you and every other person.
Thank you so much, Ma, for sharing your thoughts. It was really an eye-opener.
It's a pleasure. It is a wonderful privilege for us to use this opportunity also to create the awareness that is needed in the society.
On Innovation this week, a mother designs eyewear for people living with Down syndrome to improve their sight. That's in a moment.
Specs for Us was created and founded in 2004 by Maria Della Pina, a single mother of 4 with more than 30 years of experience in the optical field. The name Specs for Us stands for Superior Precision Eyewear for children who are special. Maria's youngest daughter, Erin, was diagnosed with Down syndrome at birth. After several frustrating years of searching for an eyeglass frame that would fit Erin properly, the finding out that nearly 87% of children with Down syndrome will need glasses by the time they enter preschool, Maria decided to combine her passion as a mother with her knowledge of eyeglasses, and Specs for Us was formed. Erin's World is a frame line designed to accommodate and fit the features of children and adults with Down syndrome, as well as other individuals with unique facial features. This innovative eyeglass design includes a bridge which is adjusted to properly fit a low nasal bridge and temples or arms of the glasses, which are modified to keep the glasses from constantly slipping down. The Specs for Us mission is to improve the sight and quality of life for children and adults with Down syndrome and other unique facial features by providing custom frames that fit their unique needs.
Sit on Soundhealth this week. Remember, with great love, care and support, people living with Down syndrome in the society will attain greater heights. For comments and inquiries, please send SMS on 0818-815-3965 or follow us on social media at LTV Social, #Soundhealth. A sound health is a sound mind. Make healthy living your choice. See you next week. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.